right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break. Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, it is sincerely appreciated. And I already got to give thank you for the thumbs up from Elton and the big heart from J. John. I know J. John has been very patient, as he told me. He's been on edge, barely getting any sleep, trying to focus on what he's doing in his life because he's so worried about whether or not the Lakers would be able to go ahead and get Andre Drummond. And you know what? Not only did the Lakers win today, they escaped in an ugly game, but hey, it's a win. 96-93 over the Orlando Magic, 96-93. But you know what? They also got Andre Drummond as well, bought out from the Cleveland Cavaliers, went through the 72 hours of waivers, cleared the waivers, and you know what? He decided early afternoon today to go ahead and be part of the Los Angeles Lakers going forward. So that's a great sign. We get a guy in the middle who 18 points, 13 rebounds, free throws, we'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. But you know what? We'll take it. Inside interior depth, we'll take it. It really hopefully will help us on the road to getting to the next level in the playoffs. But here today to talk about the game and also Andre Drummond. And since we have one more spot left on the roster, what we can do with that final roster spot is a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and catch him anywhere you can on the great site that he is part of and that he runs. It is Lakerholics.com, and it is Laker Tom. And Laker Tom, again, we escaped. It was an ugly game. Was not exactly what Mr. Naismith drew up when he created, the peach baskets and throwing the ball in there. But you know what? A win is a win. You're on mute now. I actually got no volume. We're not hearing Laker Tom. Laker Tom, one of the loudest people in the world.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes. I feel like holding a cell phone right now, but yes, I can hear you now.
Hey, like you said, Gerald, it's always good to get a win. And we got some tough games coming up, starting with the Bucks on Wednesday. So it's great to get this win. Hopefully we'll have a new starting center by Wednesday, which would definitely help. Was one of those games that it reminds me of when you get involved in a lousy movie and you've gone halfway into it and you don't want to just stop and not watch the rest of it because you want to know how it ends. And in our particular case, we know we've got a podcast coming up.
Yes.
But man, that's like pulling teeth to watch the way the Lakers played. The only thing I did like about it is they shot a lot of threes. They took a lot of threes. Yeah. And even though the results weren't pretty watching it on the court, and the Magic obviously have some offensive woes, although they've got a couple of bright shining lights there that looked pretty good, but the defense held them under 100 points again. So it's not the end of the world. We didn't shoot well. But the guys who needed to make points came through with points. Kuzma hit 5 threes. I think Markieff hit 3 threes. So we ended up with 11 out of 40 for threes, which is not a great percentage, but we didn't lose the 3-point battle. You
wanted them taking threes. You got them taking threes.
Hey, listen, I think that you need to. The old saying goes that you can't make them if you don't take them. And I'm a big believer in that. Plus, I think that players get a rhythm, when you rarely shoot threes, it's the guys who shoot 1 or 2 threes are never going to get hot and really pour in. They're never going to have a game like Danny Green had the other day against us where he made 8 threes. So you've got to feel like you've got to be comfortable to take that shot when it's open. But the game was secondary to the news that Andre Drummond did sign with the Lakers. I was getting a little worried there because he was supposed to sign like at 2:00 Pacific time, And it just dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. And I'd just written this article about sort of recreating the conversation that I was hoping that Andre and the Lakers would have about what's his role going to be. And the idea of the article was, is he going to change the Lakers, or are the Lakers going to change because of him? I started worrying that maybe there was some problems with exactly, what the understanding was going to be. Drummond, I think, is a terrific addition defensively. He's not a great shot blocker, but he's a 280-pound guy. He's
7 feet tall. We'll take it.
He's 6'10", but he's fairly, he leads the league in steals for a center, 1.6 steals per game, which means that he can move around and so forth. I think the big criticism of him defensively is that he doesn't especially want to play defense. He wants to play offense. He wants to get the ball at the elbow. He wants to get the ball in the low post. He wants to score a lot of points. He wants a lot of touches. You've got to balance that, the needs of the player and the needs of the team. He's coming to the Lakers so he can get a big contract this summer, when the Lakers want him because they want to win a championship. So there has to be a balance, a medium of minds that's got to be developed. And I'm hoping that, and I'm pretty confident that the Lakers would not. It's similar to the Dwight Howard situation in my mind, that if he's going to join the Lakers made it clear what his role was going to be. He was going to be the third option on this team.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the first or second option, because you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis filling those roles.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty positive that it's going to be a good feel. The only thing that concerns me, honestly, is the next 2 to 3 weeks when we don't have AD or LeBron in the lineup. That's opportunity time for.
Well, that is opportunity time for Andre Drummond, but you also got to remember he's been out several weeks now, as far as is concerned. So he's going to be not in the best of shape.
So hopefully
it's going to take him time and acclimated to the offense.
Acclimated
to the offense. I mean, you can't pop him in there for 30 to 35 minutes already and expect the kind of output that you are. But again, it is a step in the right direction.
We need his help. We need his help over the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
So that we don't end up too deep where we can't come back once AD comes back and LeBron comes back, and we don't want to end up in the play-in tournament.
But I'd start him with 20 to 25 minutes and go from there and see what you got. And then, if he can handle it, give him more. Free throw shooting, you got to be patient with him. He's only a 60% free throw shooter at best. So we are going to have those days like Shaq is where you foul him a lot, and he's going to see the line a lot, and he's going to miss a lot of free throws. It's just going to be that simple.
Right.
But then again, you're getting tremendous rebounding on both the offensive and defensive end. You're going to get someone who can steady your interior, be a little bit quicker than Marcus Saul, I think, and that's a step up right there for you right there. And then, of course, the thing that you can do is pick and roll. I've seen him, as far as it's concerned, do very well in that situation. And, of course, ISO him on the inside if he's got a smaller man on him, as what happens in the switching defense of these days, where all these defenses out there in the NBA, they're always switching, so you're always finding yourself in a mismatch. So if he gets in a mismatch, he can go ahead and post up and create some mismatches there. So that's something you actually want to go ahead and utilize as best you can. And when LeBron and AD come back, a lot of high-low action could be in order for the team.
Well, the big concern is that Andre is not a great offensive player. He tends to have tunnel vision. He tends to miss a lot of bunnies. He's not a good lob dunker. He's not a great pick and roll finisher. Now, the one thing that's perhaps different is when you spend your entire career. He's 27 years old, so he's got 7-8 seasons where basically he was playing with the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah,
so that's a whole different thing. You're playing for stats usually when you're playing on a team like that, and now he's going to be playing in a different situation with the Lakers. And so you hope, especially with the leadership that you get from LeBron and AD, Frank Vogel, and the whole organization, that this is an opportunity, I think, for Dre to show everybody in the league what he could really do if he was on a championship caliber team. I think we're going to see the best version of Andre Drummond.
You're so funny
and that's
right
the
now.
reason I think he's coming to the Lakers, So
You've already got Dre already, man. You already got his abbreviations already down pat. Look at you. You've already he's already the ink's barely dry, and you already got him.
I was not one of the big proponents of him coming along, and in fact,
I was more positive than you are on it.
I might have preferred Boogie, just because of the ability to shoot from outside and stretch the floor.
But both you and Jamie Sweet both asked to have Boogie over Drummond. I picked Drummond, just the fact that I thought a little bit more on the interior is what we needed as far as the points in the paint. If he can slow any of that down, I think that's something that needs to be worked on, because I know that's been an issue of theirs. You're right.
We need size, but I thought Boogie. But the same token, I thought Boogie's size. Our problem is not even that. Gasol is basically like a tree in there, and by a tree I mean he doesn't move. All you have to do is go around him to get to the basket. Cousins, I think, is be much better than that, and I think that Drummond can be a lot better than that, and especially if he's coming to a team where defense is first.
Yeah,
and he's going to be required by his peers and his coaches to play defense. And if he goes out and does that and basically creates the best version of who Andre Drummond could be, I think he'll get a bigger payoff for that than having a bunch of empty stats from going to another team. He's never played on a championship caliber team or even a contending team.
Yeah. And
so this is an opportunity to get a whole different view for him. And I just hope that it works out, because there's obviously some conflicts there. How much are the Lakers going? I don't think the Lakers should change what their particular style of play is, either offensively or defensively. However, there will be some situations, like you said earlier, where there's mismatches and you want to take advantage of them. He's not the kind of guy that really takes great advantage of mismatches, because he's not really his shot selection is not really very careful.
Reed Tacklin. Well, I want to just go ahead and Reed Tacklin added a comment. There's no way Cousins is a better rim protector than Gasol. I don't think both are great rim protectors at this stage of their career. Obviously, injuries have affected both. Injuries have affected both at this point in time. So, I mean, when it comes to, if we were talking about rim protectors, we would have waited for Hassan Whiteside to be bought out. I think that probably would have been the best of alternatives, specifically on that point. But Cousins got waived by the worst team in the NBA, and no one has picked up, which is something I would probably.
They're waiting for Drummond. They're waiting for Drummond. Now he's going to get picked up. He's going to get picked up by the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens again. DeMarcus Cousins still available out there, and I think he would be a nice addition. But here today also as well with us is a good man indeed. You got to see what he's going ahead and commenting at Lakerholics.com. It is L Rob, and L Rob, I'm sorry about your Michigan State. I mean, Laker Tom and I with USC and UCLA, fight on, Trojans, fight on. But I will say
impressive showing by the Pac-12.
Those Mobley brothers are killer. That's all I was just saying. Yeah, I'll leave that there. But I will say this: when it comes to what we're talking about with Andre Drummond, your thoughts about him joining the Lakers?
Oh man,
you've seen Andre play a lot, and for the years that
play a lot. Andre is the kind of guy, when he's playing against an inferior opponent, he dominates. When he's playing against somebody who's better than him, it doesn't go well. So, I mean, I wish I had better feedback on him, but yeah, that was his MO here. A lot of his numbers seemed like they were empty. I think he's talented. He was always forced to do more than I think he was capable of doing in Detroit, I thought. And I don't think he really improved a whole lot as far as his, offensive skill set. He's a tremendous rebounder, though. He's a tremendous rebounder. And, he can score around the basket. He's got quick hands. He can move his feet. So he's definitely an upgrade. We can use him. Thank you. I mean, I'm certainly happy to see him play, but I just don't want people to think, okay, we got this, tremendous all-star player, and I think his numbers are usually a little bit better than his game.
But it's nice to see that the Lakers are picking up someone in his mid-20s, 27, 28, as opposed to someone that's on the back end of the career or seen way too many injuries like on Brooklyn. I mean, although I still think that he was sandbagging it. It looks like very much Griffin is playing, somewhat near the level that he was playing with the Clippers, maybe 70% of what he was playing with the Clippers, but certainly a lot better than what he was playing with the Pistons, because he wasn't dunking with the Pistons. He's certainly putting a lot more effort now. Could it be because he's on a winning team? Perhaps. But you have LaMarcus Aldridge going there, and we don't know how much he has left in the tank after a disappointing season in San Antonio. So, I mean, at least right now, of the individuals that are out there on the marketplace that have gotten bought out, I think he's probably one of the best options that are out there for the team because, like you said, Rob, it's all about rebounding.
Yeah. No, I have no doubt about that. The Brooklyn matchup, the Brooklyn pickups don't even move the needle for me. I mean, Blake, stick a fork in him. Blake doesn't have a whole lot left. He's a three-point shooter. I mean, he can create, but no, I don't fear that pickup. Denver pickups, on the other hand, that was pretty impressive, picking up Gordon. And I like what Denver was able to do.
Don't forget JaVale.
Yeah, legit, yeah. JaVale can come in and give you 4 or 5 minutes. He'll give you one alley-oop, but those 3 bonehead plays that he'll make.
Well, we'll see what happens with that, because he was playing very well in Cleveland before he was traded. They were showcasing him, and he was actually doing quite well for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we'll see if that momentum picks up. I'm not as high on Aaron Gordon as some others are. I think he's okay, but I just don't think he's something that's going to get Denver over the top. But we'll see what happens with that. I want to go ahead and touch. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, in comparison, though, to what the Nets got.
Yeah. No, I agree. But then, the Nets got them for basically, essentially pocket change compared to, what Denver had to trade. Now, Denver did win that trade, I would say, over Orlando, because I think Orlando undersold Aaron Gordon, but that's another story. And you can just check out my thoughts on that at the NBA trade deadline special that Laker Tom and I, which is so much success. I mean, again, thank you so much for listening to that show. We've had a tremendous feedback on that, so we cannot thank you enough for watching and listening to that. Want to again give special love out there to Bree Marco, J. John Sarceda, and also as well Elton Barrios. Once again, it's the Lakers Fast Break, part of the Hoopheads Podcast Network. Please go ahead and catch all the great shows that they have on hoopheadspod.com, and then also catch these guys right here at the best place to go for Lakers fans. That is Lakerholics.com. Once again, the Lakers escaped. It was an ugly game, but they did win 96-93. Kuzma shot the ball a lot. Got it, 21 points. Dennis Schroeder with 24, and Montrezl Harrell, another efficient game. I wish the Lakers could go ahead and give them some consistent help, because it seems like a lot is put on their shoulders. But Laker Tom, before I get back to the subject of buyouts and who might still become available for that last spot for the Lakers, let's touch on today's game for real quick. I want to go ahead. It was an ugly game, but Laker Tom, what are your thoughts when you see such a lack of assistance or help from outside of those big three right now? I mean, THT even had a lousy game.
Well, I think the problem is that, as we've said several times, that the Lakers roster was built around Anthony Davis and LeBron James. They weren't, and we don't really have that third player. This is why we go through this thing every month of the last couple of years, is who is the third player? Is the third player our defense? Is the third player the group of players that we have, and so forth? And all of those are really excuses for not having a third guy who can really be counted on to give you 20 points a game or 10 assists per game, and so forth. And it was also mixed in with that is not a great three-point shooting team. And we lack volume three-point shooters, although Kuzma tonight was trying to prove that he was a volume three-point shooter. But those deficiencies on the team basically haven't been fixed. And they're the things that I worry most about with this team moving forward, especially when you go up against a team like Brooklyn that's got 3 superstars, because in the playoffs, superstars are what are going to carry the team. And we're going to need both of our superstars to be fully healthy and playing at the top of their game. And sometimes that's hard to do if you're just starting off again after a big layoff, and you've got to sort of ramp yourself up to that level. So the truth is, what we see is what we've got. We don't have a team that can survive and really be successful without LeBron and AD unless they're playing against a terribly inept offense. And fortunately, we've had 2 straight games in a row against terribly inept offensive teams.
Yeah.
And what we do well is, with the one exception of not having a rim protector, is we play pretty good, solid defense, and we hustle, and we've got some guys that can attack the basket in Dennis and Trez, who are excellent players, I find it, I have a problem with Trez and with Dennis in that the turnovers are just killers, man. I mean, you can't shoot 30% from deep and turn the ball over and have a turnover ratio under 2, a turnover to assist to turnover ratio under 2, and be a championship starting point guard. And the problem with Trez is that of all of the people, I mean, you can feel bad for Mark because he's probably going to, at some point in time, be a DMP every game. But Trez is the one that really bothers me because he can't play next to Drummond, which is one of the reasons I was really not in favor of Drummond as the choice. You can't put Trez and Drummond on the floor, especially with a team that doesn't have any three-point shooters to start with, because we're going to be playing 1950s basketball against the modern NBA. And if you look at this, I mean, Trez is playing 25 minutes a game. Mark is playing 20 minutes a game. Dre is playing 28 minutes a game. You add those up, it's like 70 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Well, there's only 48 minutes in the dang game, man. So what's going to happen? At some point, Dre is going to be paying 30 minutes a game as a starter on this team. Once he gets anything we're going along, that's going to leave 16 to 18 minutes a game left. And you're going to have Anthony Davis coming back. So there's going to be no time for Marc Gasol, period. He's going to sit every single game. He's not going to play at all. And Trez is going to be down to 15, 16 minutes. And that's if Anthony Davis doesn't even play the 5. Because the only person he can play with is going to be Anthony Davis. So we've got a real problem with the minutes at center. And this was one of the big negatives that I felt about. This is why I felt so much better about getting Boogie as the center, because Trez could play with him, because they're both not playing in the same sandbox. One guy can stand out there and fire away 3-pointers, or the other guy, well, Trez does his thing in the key. So it's going to be a real hurdle figuring out, because the biggest thing that we lose by adding Drummond is we lose all of that energy in the 20 points per game that we just discovered how to get Trez to give every game by running him with these pick and rolls. But you can't do that when you got Andre Drummond sitting down there in the key. So it's going to be a tough situation moving forward. And maybe the place it's a good lead in for the next question, which is, what are we going to do with that last roster spot?
Well, that's what I'll ask you next. But Rob, I wanted to go ahead and your thoughts on the game. Again, a very ugly win for the Lakers, but we will definitely take it. It is 96-93. I agree with Laker Tom. I love Dennis Schroeder's activity. I love his aggressiveness out there on the floor. But the problem is when you have a guard that can't muster enough playmaking out there to go ahead and have an assist to turnover ratio that's a 3-to-1, 4-to-1.
5 assists, 3 turnovers.
Yeah, so if it's like almost 1-to-1, that's not a great sign. That's not what you want to do. But I still like Schroeder a lot. I think he's got that dog in him that just keeps it. That his aggressiveness is just tremendous. But I want to hear your thoughts on the game. I mean, again, it comes down to efficiency from Montrez. Dennis just keep on with that aggression, and Kuzma, he had to go ahead and put up a lot. Not an efficient game at all, but just enough to get it done.
Well, in the spirit of the NCAA tournament, you just survive in advance, baby. I'm just happy we got the win. It was ugly. It was brutal. I mean, who do you guys want Schroeder, Dennis to play make and set up? I mean, really, you want him to kick it out to Matthews for some corner threes? You want him to set up Casey?
Well, yeah. Listen, you're right, L. Rob. The assists aren't necessarily Dennis's problem.
Hold on, Laker Tom. But go ahead, L. Rob.
You know, I mean, that's the only person that's converting when you give him the ball is Trez. The rest of those guys aren't doing anything, and you know, and guys like THT and Caruso, those guys aren't, you know, spot up shooters. They want to put it on the ground and create themselves. So I agree he has to cut down on the turnovers, but you know, it's hard to evaluate him with this lineup. You know, if he had that same carelessness with LeBron and AD on the court, then that would be a different story.
Yeah, it's his backcourt mate is part of the problem.
Yeah, I would like to see.
Well, I was going to say, what is his assist to turnover ratio without LeBron in the lineup?
1.9.
So, yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then, you know, what is it with LeBron in the lineup? It's a little bit more efficient because not as much pressure is put on him to handle the ball each time. So, and the fact is, when you have a whole bunch of, you know, bad shooters that you're positioned to go ahead and play with, I mean, it makes your job a lot harder. So I don't want to try.
He's a great dish and drive. He's a great dish and drive player. And the problem is that when I was going through all of the various trades that we could make, I didn't want to trade Schroeder, and I rarely included him in many of the trades. But what I did almost every single time was to try to trade for somebody in the backcourt who would balance Schroeder, a volume 3-point shooter who he could pitch that ball out to, instead of pitching it out to Caruso and pitching it out to Matthews and so forth. So
that's why I like Fournier.
KCP is like the most horrible option at this point in time for a guard to play with Dennis Schroeder. Imagine if he was playing with Zach LaVine, or if he was playing with even Lonzo Ball, or half a dozen guys that we've talked about who are volume 3-point shooters who you drive and dish pitch the ball out to those guys, and it's an automatic three. And Dennis would be, you know, easily running 2.5 assists per turnover instead of what's happening now. Now he's driving in, and half of the time he's taking shots that are pretty wild at this point in time, just simply because there isn't anybody on the outside that he really trusts to get the ball to. So it's the entire roster construction around him that makes Dennis impossible for the Lakers to keep unless they were to rectify those other situations. Get a shooting guard who could really be a dead-eye killer, outside shooter, shooting 7-8 threes a game, a guy that when he drives in, or get a center that he could do all of the time. I mean, half of the time he's playing with a Gasol. You give Gasol the ball right underneath the basket and nothing's going to happen. He's going to pass it out because he knows he can't jump. And the best that you hope is he gets fouled and gets a couple of free throws. So, you know, it's the entire roster construction and the lack of 3-point shooting, the lack of you know, it's not entirely Dennis's fault. And Dennis could be a starter on this team and maybe worth $20 million in my mind. I don't see him worth $25 million under any circumstances.
Well, it's just, I think it's when it comes to Dennis Schroeder, you're right. I was hoping that they would get someone like Evan Fournier that would be on that wing that could get, you know, at least that would put up a lot of shots. That would get make you happy as far as someone putting 7-8 threes up a game, because he certainly loves to do that. Right. I would have loved to have seen him on the team if that's the case.
Well, he'd do better even with LeBron and AD in the lineup.
Norman Powell.
Realize that he's playing without his two superstars.
Norman Powell, seeing what he was traded for, I think I would.
Victor Oladipo.
No, not Victor. Moving on from Victor Oladipo.
Baloney, man.
I'm not a fan of Victor Oladipo. You're not going to sell me on Victor Oladipo.
Yeah, I haven't read a single article that said that the Rockets won that trade.
Oh no, well the Rockets.
Are you kidding me? Miami got a steal getting him for Olnick.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it wasn't a steal, as I indicated on our last podcast. But when it comes to Victor
you'll
Oladipo,
be sorry, because we're going to probably run into him at some point in time in the next few games. We play Miami in a couple
Let
weeks.
me ask you this. Do you want Norman Powell, 43% shooting through 20 points a game, 3-point line, or do you want 20 points a game from Oladipo, but shooting on many, many, many more times as a 31% three-point
I'd take either one of them instead of KCP,
Wow, okay,
Dennis Schroeder, and THT.
Well, okay, that's beside the point. Okay, if you were saying that's yes, I would have taken either over that. I'll give you that.
I
But
mean, I would have loved Kyle Lowry. I mean,
yeah,
again, that was a mistake.
But again, that we can keep on crying.
I'm a founder of THT Island, and yet I still would have pulled the trigger on that trade.
Well, again, they didn't happen, so it still leaves us with one roster spot. We're right near the hard cap, but we're not on it yet. We still have room for one more individual that we could sneak. Like it would just get us right up against the hard cap, I believe. Is that correct? I was looking at Bobby Marks.
Yeah, anybody you sign is only going to be charged against us. The most they'll be charged against us is $1.5 million.
5 to 700,000.
$1.6 million. It's the 2-year veteran minimum pay is charged against the team, and the NBA itself pays any additional amounts he gets if he's a 6-year veteran or a 7-year veteran or an 8-year veteran.
Well, I'm seeing what we got
1.9 million free, and we can spend 1.6 million to get somebody like Otto Porter Jr.
Okay, because I know Bobby Marks was saying something a little bit less than that, but that's okay. I mean, it's again we're right up against the cap, but we do have the one slot, a roster slot open. Rob, I want to turn it over to you real quick before we head on out, my friend. There is that roster spot available. I mean, I saw a player in tonight's game I was hoping would have been on that buyout market already, and Otto Porter Jr., someone who I would have loved as a wing to go ahead and just fill it up as far as on the defensive and offensive end, and somebody who is not afraid, like Laker Tom is so happy and looking forward for someone that would go ahead and put up a lot of three-pointers. He would certainly fit the bill, and actually one time was very efficient at it, so you never know. He could refine that stroke. But who out there are you hoping gets bought out that maybe the Lakers could go ahead and fill that last roster spot with? Rob, are you there? Rob, did I lose you? You know what? While we get Rob back, Laker Tom, do you have an idea on who you're still looking out there for as far as the last roster spot is concerned?
Well, I think it's pretty simple that the Lakers have come out and said that they're looking for a 3-and-D wing. And if you look at the guard situation, we've got 5 guards and we've got 4 guys who are mainstays on the guards in KCP and Schroeder as the starters, and THT and Caruso coming off of the bench. So, there's not any minutes available really for anything other than backing up LeBron and in the small forward area. So I think that they're looking for somebody like Otto Porter Jr. The other thing is that they've got until April 7th to still pick up people from the buyout market, because that's the date. If you sign them before April 7th, they're eligible for the playoffs. And so that's a date that the Lakers may hold off and see if anybody else comes along. I think it'll be interesting. I don't think if they could sign Porter right now, I think they'd take him. But if they can't sign Porter, then they'll just sit there and wait. They're not going to bring in a guard. They're not going to sign Avery Bradley. They're not going to sign Isaiah Thomas. They're definitely not going to sign another center. So it's going to be Otto Porter Jr. or wait until another. Maybe they just need another wing defender. Basically, that's the only place where they've got any playing time really available.
I want to go ahead and say thank you for the thumbs up to Cornelio and Delbert, along with everybody else who's watched us today. We've had a lot of fans actually show up, and we truly appreciate you listening and watching. Rob is here now. It was so funny because you were so stoic, and I thought you were just, intently listening.
We didn't know you were frozen.
Well, I didn't know. I thought Laker Tom was talking so much that Rob was just so entranced by it, but then I realized, hey, that's a freeze frame right there for the past 5 minutes. So, yes. Rob, we're back with you right now. Is there anybody out there, or hopefully on the horizon, as far as the buyout market is concerned, that you think that could fill that niche as far as that last roster spot? And before you say that, I want to give you the exact numbers because I know Laker Tom was talking about it. According to Bobby Marks from ESPN, the contract for Andre Drummond in Los Angeles is the amount of $794,536 that he gave back in his buyout with the Cleveland Cavs. The Lakers will also have a $554,988 cap hit, and the Lakers are $954,349 below the hard cap and have enough room to sign a 15th player. So with that in mind, they still have the room to sign a 15th player with, for that $900,000. So I want to hear your thoughts on who that might be.
Well, I had a freeze frame. So before I comment on that, never pass up a chance to get a nice musical reference in. So nice shout out to Jay Giles Band with the
freeze frame.
There you go.
I think I should do that every time Laker Tom talks. I should just go and have a freeze frame. I'll just put up there, go like, yes, right there, something like that.
I wish I had somebody that I had in mind that I thought would be a good pickup that we can have.
Leonard.
Really, there's nobody I can think of that's going to fit the bill that's out there right now that what we're looking for. So okay. I think we just got to hope that somebody will get let go, bought out in the next week or two.
I know you guys are going to freak out when I say this, but the name Austin Rivers is being bandied about in Lakers land. Your thoughts on that? I see some head shaking going on, so I'm assuming it's going to be.
He's an interesting and a good player, but I don't.
So who's going
to lose playing time? We just turned down the trade of the century for THT.
Yeah,
Caruso is the bench goat, and we got two starters, and he's not going to start over KCP, although he'd be a big improvement. He's not going to start over KCP or Dennis Schroeder. We don't have minutes at guard.
Yeah, he was released by what team?
He got traded to, I believe, Oklahoma City from the Knicks because he was bench warmer there in the Knicks, and he got traded to Oklahoma City. And hard to
play when your dad's not the coach.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Yes, Rob.
You just said it all. He was not playing with the Knicks. So I mean, if he couldn't play with the Knicks, then that would not bode well. If he could get some significant playing, it's not like they have a who's who of guards over there in New York. So yeah, I mean, Austin Rivers, that's going to be a hard no for me.
You know what's interesting is that I saw these numbers where the trade deadline actually ended up with more players being traded than any other year. And then they went in and they showed me the numbers on the buyout market. And the buyout market this year is the biggest buyout market in the history of the league. Wow. There have been so many players that have been released and entered the buyout market. And we still have all the way till April 7th before you can still get anybody that's bought out by then and still play them in the playoffs. So the Lakers, Pelinka's hoping that this buyout market can wipe out all of the bad taste from the trade deadline market.
But again,
signing Drummond is a hell of a good start.
I don't think it was a good sign that Otto Porter Jr. played today for Orlando because of the fact that he is playing for Orlando, which means Orlando is interested in keeping him. If they're playing him, they took the time to go ahead and get him a jersey. That means they're going to probably play him maybe even through the rest of the season. So that doesn't bode well for people out there.
But they're also tanking.
Yeah,
they're also in a full tank where they want to increase the opportunity, and it's a tank that's not necessarily related to the next draft. It's the fact that somebody owns their draft pick, but it's top 4 protected, and so they want to make sure that they fall far enough in there so that draft pick is in the top 4, so they won't lose it. So that's why they're tanking, and so there's a good chance he'll get cut.
Well, they ran the last play of the game for him too, so it's like, yeah. I mean, wow. Okay, he's not only not getting cut, but we're running the play to tie the game for him. So
yeah, so that was a very disheartening.
He hit that 1-3. That was a great 3 that he hit earlier. That was.
And that's what he can do. He can fill it up. At one time, he was a 40% free point shooter.
Guys who only shoot threes. At least you have a hope that they'll be high volume.
Yeah. So
he's a 40% career 3-point shooter.
Yeah, and we'll wait and see how that works out. Again, I'd love to see Otto Porter Jr. be someone that the Lakers could pick up. Is there someone out there that you think is going to reach the buyout market that the Lakers would be interested in? We want to hear your thoughts, whether it's Jay John or whether it's everyone else. We just truly appreciate it. Bree, you've been so great. Cornelio, Delbert, Elton, we cannot thank you enough. Salamat from all of us here at the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate it. But before we head on out, guys, I know you both are with L. Rob with your great comments, but also as well, Laker Tom. And in fact, L. Rob, you're still above me in our fantasy league. So don't think I don't know that, young man. But you're still doing very well there, although we're losing right now. I think you're second and I'm third. But Laker Tom.
I think I creeped within a game of first place. So
there you go. There you go. All right. Sounds good. And hopefully I'm not too far behind. But before we head on out, guys, it is Lakerholics.com. Want to go ahead and make sure everybody knows that's the best place to go if you're a Lakers fan. Please be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com. And Laker Tom, I know you're working on some articles like you had mentioned earlier. What else you got planned for this week at Lakerholics.com?
Well, I want to try to. I'm in the middle of writing something about Trez because I just feel so bad for the guy because he took a discount to come to the Lakers, looking for an opportunity to get a little revenge on the Clippers and so forth. And the first half of the season, he was only averaging like 14 points a game and down from the 20 points per game when he won the Sixth Man of the Year award. And still suffering from the loss of his grandmother and just, terrible ravaging of his family by the COVID situation. And then we start the second half of the season and we all of a sudden, finally start running the guy in the pick and rolls, which is his bread and butter. And he's been producing great. His energy is great. He's a guy that every single person who watches, he's the reason to watch these horrible Laker games that we've been watching. It's been Montrez. He's been the primary thing that I've enjoyed watching the games. And I'm just worried that he's going to become very difficult for him to get playing time with Andre Drummond coming along. So I'm looking at different ideas of ways, he's basically a 5, everybody keeps trying to, because he's only 6'7", to turn him into a 4. But the truth is he's a small ball 5. And I'd like to, he has to play with AD and yet our formula for the championship is AD at center with a stretch 4 next to him, and that's not Trez. So what can we do to not lose the firepower and the energy that Trez brings to the team? I think that's a big challenge. And if there's any challenge that the coaching staff should be working on right now for the Lakers for the rest of the regular season and heading into the playoffs, it's how do we continue to take advantage of the great energy and scoring ability that Trez brings to the table.
Well, we'll see what happens, but please check out Laker Tom's awesome articles at medium.com under Laker Tom, or be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com, where L. Rob hangs his hat every now and then. And before we head on out, my friend, what are you looking forward to this week, which starts this Wednesday against the Milwaukee Bucks?
I'm looking forward to seeing Drummond in the purple and gold and see what he can bring. I mean, if somebody listened to this podcast, they probably say, boy, these Laker guys, boy, I tell you, they just got Andre Drummond for nothing and they still complaining and harping and whining. So, we are spoiled. Drummond's a great pickup, and I'm just looking forward to seeing him out there, see how they incorporate him into the offense. And I'm not as worried about Trez as LT. I think, the coaches will figure it out. I mean, Trez is something valuable, and playoffs are all about matchups, and you need to have as many different playing styles as possible to hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy. So having Trez there, having Drummond option there, they'll figure it out. As a healthy Lakers team, I'll be excited to see. It's going to be brutal until we get the guys back, but maybe Drummond can come in and help hold down the fort in the meantime. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
I also want to give an update to Anthony Davis, who's been given clearance to do more on-court activities within recent days. So that's a promising sign. No word yet on when he's actually coming back to the lineup, but at least he's back out on the court practicing, as far as whether it's him, whether it's limited one-on-one, or, just at least, out on the court, doing some work, doing some running, doing some leg work, getting some more time, on the court once again. So he's on the way to getting back on the court, hopefully sooner rather than later. But we just want him at 100%, especially with him, as fragile as he is, and he is fragile, which is the reason why he signed the extension. I mean, we're just right now, we're just hoping that he can come back as healthy. So take as much time as you need to come back strong, to come back healthy. And of course, LeBron hopefully will be coming back not too much after that. So we'll see what happens. But again, Andre Drummond is now a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. He brings 18 points, 13 rebounds, and almost 2 steals a game to the Lakers. So hopefully we can get that, maybe a little bit of shot blocking as well. So we'll see what happens. But it all starts for us this Wednesday. I might try to sneak in another podcast this week. We'll see what happens. But it all starts for us for sure this Wednesday, right here at the Lakers Fast Break. Again, we are part of the Hoopheads Podcast Network. Please check out all the great stuff that they're doing at hoopheadspod.com. Of course, Lakerholics.com. If you have any questions for us, if you have any questions for L. Rob, go ahead and hit us up through Lakerholics.com. Laker Tom at Laker Tom on Twitter. We're at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter and Lakers Fast Break at yahoo.com. Or you can just hit us up on social media on the Lakerholics group on Facebook, or Lakers Fast Break on our Facebook page where you're catching us right now. And again, I noticed in the past 3 or 4 podcasts that we've been doing, we've gotten a substantial increase in viewers. And this does not go unnoticed by us. And I want to say from my heart that, just basically we've got so much love for you. We've gotten responses again from all over the world: Canada, Jordan, the Philippines, Singapore, and, from my friends in the Philippines out there, salamat. We've got much love for you. Thank you so much wherever you're at, listening and watching to us right here at the Lakers Fast Break. We know you're like us, that you bleed purple and gold, and we cannot thank you enough for taking some time out of your day to checking us out. And yes, even listening to Laker Tom. All right. Once again, it is the Lakers. You knew I had to get a shot in there, but I got nothing but love for you, Laker Tom. L. Rob and we've got nothing but love for you, LT. But L. Rob, it's been so great having you here. Laker Tom, it's been so awesome having you here. Once again, the Lakers did sneak out. It was not the prettiest game in the world.
2 in a row. 2 in a
row. Winning streak. Was it Jamie Admiral Akbar that said that's not a winning streak?
He doesn't consider that a winning streak.
Well, that's a winning streak to me. I'll take 2 in a row. I'll take 2 in a row.
Amen.
I'll take 2. It takes 2 to make a thing go right. Okay, I won't go sing that. I'm sorry. I didn't want to scare anybody. But last comments of the day, Jay John Cerceda says Brooklyn's nuts. They have no defense. The Lakers are going to eat them. Now, again, if their Lakers are fully healthy, they've got the best defense in the NBA, and they can match up with anybody. But he says right now the Lakers are going to eat them. Imagine LBJ, A. Davis, Anthony Davis, Andre Drummond, the Beast Harrell, Caruso together on the floor as a defensive unit. Well, we'll see if that happens. But I truly appreciate, Jay John, your love for us. You can sleep now, my friend. You can rest now. Now that the Lakers have Andre Drummond in the fold, you can get some sleep. On behalf of all of us here at the Lakers Fast Break, get some rest. And for everybody out there that was worried when we weren't going to get him, well, he is now a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. That is Andre Drummond. So we're hoping for some great things. And once again, the Lakers did win 96-93 on a 2-game winning streak. Sorry, Jamie. 2-game winning streak. That's what I'm going to say, and I'm proud of it. We'll take it any way we can get it. And tell you what, we will definitely be here Wednesday. Might sneak another show beforehand, but we'll definitely be here Wednesday after the game right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.